Serious, employers. What's the most insane complaint you've had about an employee that turned out to be completely true? Our worker took a shit in the toilet of a vacant apartment that didn't have running water and then didn't say anything and left. They know they are supposed to use bathrooms in the offices/clubhouses because vacant units never have running water. The complex didn't find it until 3 days later, when they brought a potential tenant for a walkthrough. It had been over 100 degrees all week. The woman I spoke to said there wasn't any toilet paper, either. HR head, got a call from a sex chat administrator, informing our official account is unpaid. They will take legal action if we don't pay immediately. I thought it was a joke. Anyways, we did get a legal notice. Then legal and HR investigated. The sex chat company sent a phone call copy. As soon I played it, my HR lady screamed, "I know this guy, he works in supply chain." Later on, we realized we had an employee who used to make phone sex chat calls using our company landline. We politely told him to pay up and settle the matter, then issued a final warning letter. Many years ago, the bookshop I worked at hired a new employee with terminal cancer. Very sad. Since she was quite young, she wasn't around too much due to the chemotherapy etc., but when she was in, she worked in the children's department. She was actually a pretty good children's bookseller, and was a huge fan of a fairly major American children's author. She ran the UK branch of his fan club and knew him personally. He occasionally flew her out to the States for events. One day, she wasn't in, and all employees were called to a staff meeting. We were informed that she had passed away. There was a lot of sadness. Her close colleagues were devastated. Only a few days later, one of our staff happened to go into a branch of McDonald's in a nearby town. Guess who was working behind the counter? Go on, guess. Turns out she was never ill. She had made the whole cancer thing up, as well as faking her own death, for reasons that we never really fully understood. The general consensus was that it started out as a way to connect with her author hero and kind of spiraled from there. In the end, she couldn't handle living the lie anymore, and so, just up and had her mother tell people that she died, and then got a job in Mickey D's a few miles down the road, and was surprised when she got found out. That was a pretty what the fuck sort of experience for us all. The cemetery director was selling plots, pocketing the money, $750, and selling the same plot to another family. The second family would show up ready to bury their deceased only to find the grave already being used. He got away with it for a year. I used to work at a rural hospital in Texas. We had a surgeon who was always asking the assisting nurses to leave the OR to go get some random supply. You are never supposed to have only one person in the OR, but he would always figure out a way. These were minimally invasive surgeries that just required sedation, so there were no other assists besides nurses, no anesthesiologist, etc. He was the only physician. The door would also mysteriously lock and the nurse would have to knock to get back in. One of our nurses got fed up and knew something was going on, so she set up her phone to video him. It turned out he had been sticking his, manhood in patients' mouths. He was of course fired, but horrifically did not lose his license. We had another surgeon who drag raced a teenager and the kid died. He only got put on probation. After all this bullshit, I couldn't work there anymore. This was through a friend of mine who worked as a security guard for a mall. There were multiple complaints about the one lady who never showed up for her shift, and when the supervisor looked into it, nothing would happen. Eventually it came to light that the woman didn't exist, and the supervisor had been collecting her paychecks for almost a year. I work at a major retailer in Australia. Back in 2015, we got a tip from an anonymous customer that one of our managers was a pedophile and had groomed this customer's daughter years back. No one believed it at first, and the higher-ups did an investigation just as a formality. Turns out, TBs of child porn was found in his possession, including some photos that he had taken himself. After that, we all had to undertake mandatory training on what to do if we suspect pedophilia in a co-worker. Had a complaint that someone was driving one of our machines with a giant swastika on the side. Never in a million years. Went down and there it was. Person was fired immediately, but he didn't care. New hire, kinda weird, definitely suffering from a lack of social skills. Fast forward a few days, and a customer comes back to return a piece of merchandise, claiming when they got home there was blood on it. We looked. Yeah, that was blood. We looked up the transaction. Only about 45 minutes earlier. New hire had set it up. Went to find him, but he wasn't in his department. Not necessarily a big deal. We had to go back into the warehouse for stuff all the time. Went to find him. There he was, in the warehouse, cutting his wrists with a razor blade, bleeding all over the place. Had an employee that was actively robbing local banks on his days off. I believe he hit 8 to 9 different banks before he got caught. Found out about it during an early FBI raid of the employee locker/break rooms done in conjunction with a raid on his house. To say it was a shock was an understatement. He wasn't even top 20 of my list of potential felonious employees. I managed a girl who was a loose cannon. She was an alcoholic who had multiple appointments every week. Psych, physio, solicitors, all of it. She was constantly disappearing from work at random hours for like half a day, and as her drinking intensified she would show up stinking of booze. I'm a former alcoholic and the same age, so I tried my best with her. Anyway, she was on the long stretch towards getting performance managed, but she sped it up herself. We shared a building with the council and knew all of the staff, including the council rangers who patrol the streets/give tickets, etc. One morning on her way to work she saw a street sign she wanted to take to give a friend. Cannot tell you why. She pulled a screwdriver from her bag. Why she had it, again, cannot say, and unscrewed it while standing on a milk crate in front of one of the rangers. She brought it into the office, told everyone, asked another staff member to hide it for her in case ranger came looking, then also put photos of it on Instagram with the office and company signage in the background. We had a meeting planned that day about her absenteeism and she told me because she thought it was a good laugh. Anyway, took a few days but she quit when HR started investigating. I knew a guy who worked at Subway back when they gave out stamps. Basically for every 6 inches of sub you bought you earned a stamp, and once you filled a card with 8 stamps you could get a free 6-inch sub. So this guy started only giving stamps to customers who asked for them. If they didn't ask he pocketed their stamps and grew a sizable stack of complete stamp cards. Then over time he started cashing them in. When a customer paid with cash he would ring it in as a freebie, place his own completed stamp card in the till, and pocket the cash. Customer got their sub. Subway's till was balanced, and he had an extra $5 to $10 in his pocket. Everybody was happy. He worked there for a few years and word was he racked up a few $1,000s running this scheme. No idea if anybody complained, or if he was ever caught. But he did buy a motorbike. Working in a bank, had a teller, about 19-year-old, get pissed about the way a customer, retail store owner, would send in her deposits at the drive-up window. The teller complained about the customer on Facebook. Tagged the lady personally, as well as the store. Customer called the bank and told me, furious of course. I told the customer we would investigate. I asked the teller. She straight up admitted it, and says what's the customer or branch manager going to do about it? My grandfather is friends with the bank president. I called HR and bank president on conference. Girl lost her job in under 15 minutes of me receiving the call from the customer. Breach of customer confidentiality in banking is a major law violation. I was the head night auditor at an upscale airport property. Had a youngish night auditor who put a room into out-of-order status and let his friends in to party and have an orgy that he joined during his lunch break. He got caught because of a noise complaint. Police called. He was fired and blacklisted from being hired back. That the guy was stalking a female employee. It was a 24-hour retailer and she was a morning shift and he was night shift, so I just thought there was no way they knew each other. Then one day I was filling in for a different manager and he came into the break room and was taking pictures of the morning shift schedule. I asked him why and he told me some story about another employee just wanted him to send their schedule, etc. I came in on my day off later that week during day shift and caught him staring at her from a different aisle while she was stalking. She had no idea. He would follow her home and watch her house and all that. She was 17, he was 38. I called the cops and had him escorted off the property and helped her get in touch with the right resources for a restraining order. He ended up violating the order multiple times and is in jail last I heard. On his second day at KFC, he tried walk out with 2 buckets of chicken and ran right into her boss. A chain restaurant here does student discount of 30% off. One of the waiters, who was a student himself, would use his own student discount whenever a table paid full price in cash, and keep the difference for himself. Only got found out because head office emailed the manager to check why one student had eaten at the restaurant 5 times a day for the last few weeks. So I worked retail and we got this guy named something like Gus. My boss tells me, hey, this guy's got anxiety, go easy on him, okay? And so I was like, okay, that's cool, I get it, I can relate. I do everything I can to help him make sense of the infernal godforsaken hellscape that is retail. It starts off with little forgivable things, forgetting a task here, forgetting things there, accidentally giving the wrong info and things like that. You know, newbie retail stuff like that. He quickly devolved in popularity as his complacency grew over time and his helpful attitude shrank. My guy started fucking around during his shift, getting caught on his phone while ignoring backup cashier calls and things like that. He would make stabbing motions behind the manager's back to other employees, tell off new employees, and play it all off like he was some innocent dope who didn't know any better. None of this got him fired. Day after day was a new complaint from an employee about responsibilities he shirked or a customer about blatantly wrong info like, oh yeah, we have another location up on the hill and we didn't. No idea whose son he was, because that was apparently all kosher. What actually got him fired is the one day he brought a dog and a super expensive dog collar into work. He claimed he almost hit the dog on the way to work and it was running around wild, etc. etc. He tried to sell the dog collar to a customer, then tried to adopt out the dog to a co-worker. This co-worker was competent enough to take the dog to a vet, whereupon they found a microchip and contacted the actual owners. That's where the fun started. It came out that Gus never found the dog at all. He straight up kidnapped this dog from his neighbor and tried to pawn it off, knowing full well what he was doing. The guy lawyered up immediately, tried to sue Gus and threatened to sue the store and the store manager if Gus wasn't fired. Suffice to say, Gus was gone the very same evening. Nothing else came of it, but we talked about him for years and years. Had a co-worker who always had a really strong stench and thought it was just bad BO. Turns out she was addicted to mothballs and was licking them during working hours. The chemicals give off an unbelievably strong smell through your skin. We got complaints about her odor but didn't take them seriously, thought people were just being assholes, until someone saw her actively licking on the job. Edit. Wow. Never thought I would see my comment at the top of this sub. I was leaving my job when this was discovered and sworn to secrecy because it's not the kind of thing we can advertise around the office. Thanks for letting me get it out there, Reddit. It's a good one. Something else I would add is it was the kind of smell where you could never really quite put the finger on what it was, but once we figured it out it made a lot of sense. It doesn't smell exactly like the real thing, but like it's been processed through your body/skin lol. We were also very wary of being discriminatory, which is why it wasn't discovered earlier. Once had a coworker selling shrimp from the dumpster. Picked them out after brunches. Popped a few on a skewer, and sold them in the bars that night. Got caught in a bar with the manager, and the CCTV caught him dumpster diving. They had him arrested. Huge well-known international company. Young straight out of college guy just hired, as in, first day the same week, who had moved from Eastern Europe to corporate location. Q company ski trip, free booze. Some of his new colleagues/friends told him that this woman was checking him out. He wasn't exactly sober, and started hitting on her. She told him to knock it off, that she wasn't interested. He kept being pushy. Large scary dude beside the woman told him to knock it off. He swung at large scary dude, and promptly found himself face first in the snow. The woman in question, head of global HR. The large scary dude, head of global corporate security, ex-military. The young schmuck, fired. Night shift at a packing line. He had two new temps and they were polar opposites. One super bubbly religious guy who was pretty emotional, cried during his favorite songs. The other guy was grunge, pretty cynical but a damned good worker. Well, they both ended up working on adjacent lines and I was training them. Things were great till the bubbly guy decided it was his mission to befriend the grunge guy. Grunge dude wanted to be left alone so he could work, but bubbly guy kept going to our team lead to tell her he couldn't understand why grunge wouldn't be his friend. My team lead comes down and tells them to play nice and be friends. She was despised by most of our crew. She's oblivious. I told her that Bubbles needs to leave grunge alone but she wouldn't have it. Grunge walked out, and Bubbles cried for 2 nights straight then never came back. That employee took a woman's phone number from her account at the store we worked at and called her. I never thought anyone was that stupid. When I worked at Sam's Club, one of the cashiers pocketed a few grand from his drawer and put it on Facebook. We were a new club, so if that much money went missing, it would have taken them a while to figure out. Or so I was told. One of the managers overheard and they put 2 and 2 together. He got arrested and was fired. This definitely won't be as crazy as all the other stories, and is definitely not even closest to the craziest person I've had to go to HR about / was called in to report on, but it really stuck with me : This guy was bullying another one really badly. Like American high school movie in 80s badly. Reason? He was from out of town. That was it. I thought there had to be more to the drama, went to the place, interviewed a few people, watched it happen myself, and damn, yeah, it seemed like this guy could not take the fact that this kid, 20s, was from another state. I was absolutely expecting the sort of drama that building was more famous for, baby daddies, sleeping with someone's wife, etc. Nope. Local hardware store had an employee jacking and putting it in a co-worker's coffee. True story. People found out and he was arrested. She left an unbelievable and unflushable gigantic turd both in and out of the toilet. I went into the bathroom to deal with what was surely an exaggeration, and probably a nasty diarrhea mess. But no, there was a single unbroken enormous log that was hanging down over the outside of the toilet seat, going up over the seat and back down through the hole into the drain as far as the eye could see, all in one piece. Flushing had no effect. None. It didn't budge, it didn't wiggle. Nothing. Gravity didn't even pull it apart where it hung over the side of the bowl halfway to the ground. It was, well, it was unbelievable. No one knew what to do. No one wanted to clean it up. Someone wondered aloud if we should send her to the hospital. Honestly, I can't remember what happened next, only that there were tools involved. But I can still see that monster turd like it was yesterday. It was in 1997. I could never look her in the face again. I just kept wondering how. Maddie, wherever you are, I hope you're doing better. Happened recently. Driving job. I don't really have to worry about the person recognizing this. He sucks so bad with computers that I nearly ended up with a manslaughter charge during onboarding. Okay, I get this person through onboarding, my boss and HR get him through orientation, we set him out to train. Trainer comes in, exasperated. Dude can't drive, the easy part of the job. He can't secure cargo, the more challenging, but still easy part of the job. He starts crying while driving. He ignores instruction. This goes on for a week. Trainer says he's not going to pass the guy. I tell my boss his options are to either have him retrain under another trainer, do a ride-along, draw his own conclusions, or term the guy. Eventually, my boss does the ride-along. The guy nearly causes a wreck, while doing exactly what he was told not to do, with me in front of him not 3 minutes ago. During his ride-along, he runs 2 stop signs and nearly has a head-on collision. Boss wanted to give him another week as long as he didn't fuck up his paperwork. This is my domain, and I've been known to make people reconstruct their entire day from scratch if they fuck it up bad enough. He proceeds to back out of the lot with both hands off the wheel. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening. Subscribe for more daily videos.